A late-night traffic stop turned violent in seconds. The officer thought he was just dealing with another driver. But when he finally looked at the man's ID, he realized he had just assaulted the mayor, and the whole world was watching. It was nearly midnight in the quiet town of Pine Brook, California. The streets were calm, the liquor store had just closed, and only a few porch lights flickered in the dark. Officer Craig Lunsford sat alone in his patrol car, bored, frustrated, and angry. His day had been rough. His request for time off? Denied. His ex-wife? Called just to yell at him. And now, he was just driving around, looking for something, anything to do. That's when he spotted it. An old silver Toyota Camry, moving slowly down Kingsley Street. Nothing illegal, but something about it made Craig uneasy. Maybe the car's make, maybe the time of night, or maybe it was just the glimpse of the driver's skin under the streetlight. He flicked on his lights. The car pulled over right away. No sudden moves, no attitude, just quiet compliance. But Craig didn't call it in, didn't check the plates, didn't have a reason. He just felt like stopping the driver. He got out, approached the car, hand on his holster. The window was already down. The driver, a calm, well-spoken black man, maybe in his 30s, was reaching slowly for his documents. "It's in here," the man said, voice steady. Craig didn't like that. The calm, the confidence. This man didn't seem scared, and that irritated him more than he'd admit. "Did I do something wrong, officer?" the man asked, polite, steady-eyed. Craig snapped, "Don't question me." The man handed over his ID and insurance. Craig didn't even look at the name. He didn't care. All he saw was someone who wasn't afraid, and that rubbed him the wrong way. "Get out of the car." The man blinked. "Sir, may I ask why?" "I said, get out of the damn car." Craig's voice echoed down the street. A few lights turned on. Someone peeked out through the blinds. Still, the man stepped out slowly, hands up. "I don't want any trouble." Craig moved in close, shoved him once, then harder. The man stumbled back. "You gonna resist now?" Craig growled. "No, I'm not resisting," the man said quietly. Then Craig hit him, a hard, open-palm slap across the face. The man fell. A teenager across the street gasped. She was filming. Her live stream had over 3,000 viewers. Everyone saw the moment the man hit the ground. He didn't yell, didn't fight back, just looked up, dazed, confused. And then another police cruiser pulled up. 2 more officers stepped out. One of them froze. "Craig, stop! Do you even know who that is?" Officer Stanton shouted. Craig ignored him, grabbed the man by the collar, ready to drag him up. "My name is Anthony Delmar," the man said calmly. "I'm the mayor of this city." Everything stopped. Craig blinked, looked down at the ID still in his hand. Anthony Delmar, the mayor. His stomach turned, his grip loosened, but it was too late. Cameras were rolling, phones were recording, and the damage was already done. The neighborhood was silent, but the moment was already spiraling out of control. Craig Lunsford stood frozen, still gripping the mayor's collar, knuckles tight. Terry Stanton was shouting, but Craig could barely hear him. His mind raced, his heart thudded, and in his hand, that license with one undeniable truth. He had just assaulted the mayor of Pine Brook. People started gathering. Lights turned on, doors opened, phones came out. "She just hit the mayor!" someone yelled. Live streams were rolling. Over 3,000 people were already watching it unfold online. Craig let go of the mayor's shirt. He stumbled back like a man waking up from a bad dream. I didn't know," he mumbled, voice shaky. But it didn't matter. Anthony Delmar sat on the curb, wiping blood from his lip. His cheek was swelling fast. But he didn't shout, didn't curse. He just looked Craig in the eyes and said, "You never even asked for my name." Silence. Stanton stepped in. "Craig, go wait in the car." "I didn't know," Craig said again, louder now, like that would change anything. "Now," Stanton ordered firmly. Craig walked away slowly, every pair of eyes in the neighborhood following him. The weight of what just happened hung in the air like smoke. By now, EMS had arrived. The mayor refused a stretcher. He just wanted the reports, the footage, the names. He wanted everything logged. By 12:43 a.m., Mayor Delmar sat in the back of an ambulance, not as a victim, but as a witness to something that could no longer be ignored. Craig sat in his cruiser, still sweating. He hadn't even called it in. Stanton had done that for him. His head buzzed with confusion, shame, and fear. But deep down, he knew. He hadn't seen a mayor that night. He saw a black man in an old car and made a choice. By morning, the town was on fire. Not with flames, but with outrage. Every news station picked up the story. The footage of Craig slapping the mayor played on repeat, over and over. And the question everyone asked wasn't what happened. It was, why hasn't he been suspended yet? By sunrise, Pine Brook wasn't the same. The small town that rarely made headlines was now the center of national attention. News vans lined up outside City Hall. Reporters knocked on doors, searching for anyone who had seen what happened. And inside the police station, tension filled the air like smoke before a storm. Chief Marlene Knox, a woman who had served the department for over 20 years, stood at the front of a closed-door meeting. Her face was hard, carved from the weight of responsibility. She didn't mince words. Effective immediately, Officer Craig Lunsford is placed on administrative leave. His badge and firearm are already in my possession. Internal Affairs will be notified. This will not be swept under the rug. Some officers nodded quietly. Others sat still, unsure of what to feel. Officer Stanton sat at the back, arms crossed, eyes lowered. He couldn't get Delmar's words out of his head. "You never even asked for my name." Outside, the city held its breath. People waited. Residents whispered in grocery stores and at gas stations. Teachers had quiet conversations in school hallways. Something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. But the one voice they were waiting to hear was silent. Mayor Delmar hadn't spoken publicly since leaving the hospital. He was resting at home with staff and close friends nearby. His cheek was still bruised, but his silence made the noise louder. Letters started arriving at his home, some filled with love, others full of questions. One handwritten card read, "I voted for you. I still believe in you. But what happens next matters most." And then protests began. Not massive ones, at least not yet, but loud enough to echo down Main Street. Dozens of people gathered in front of the Pine Brook Police Department holding signs. "Ask first. No more excuses. Accountability now." The crowd grew by the hour. Back at his house, Officer Craig Lunsford stayed hidden. His phone was off. His front lawn had been egged. Someone spray-painted the word "resign" on his garage door. He didn't go outside, didn't look out the window, just sat in the dark, playing the moment over and over in his mind. The name, the silence, the shift. He told himself he hadn't known, that it wasn't personal. But deep down, he knew that wasn't the full truth. Across the state in Sacramento, reporters began digging into Lunsford's past. By late afternoon, 2 different news outlets had published stories on his record. 19 complaints in the last 10 years. Only 1 had ever gone past a supervisor. None led to discipline, no hearings, no consequences. Some former officers even spoke out. "I warned them," one said. Craig had issues. He was impulsive. But no one wanted to rock the boat. Inside City Hall, council members met behind closed doors. Some called for reforms. Others wanted to fire the chief. Some just wanted to stay quiet and hope it would all blow over. But the silence wasn't helping. At a local diner, an older man stirred his coffee and muttered, "He should have just said who he was." The waitress fired back, "Doesn't matter who he was. That officer was out of line. Everybody knows it." Not far from there, a few off-duty officers gathered in private. Some were angry. Some were defensive. "I've worked here 15 years, one said. "Never laid a hand on anyone." "Now I'm the villain?" "You're not the villain," another replied. "But if you defend the guy who is, what does that make you?" In a quieter corner of town, high school students printed flyers for a peaceful march. They didn't care about politics. They just knew what they'd seen. And it didn't sit right. More stories surfaced. A woman named Tyler Anderson came forward. Officer Lunsford had pulled her over a year ago, accused her of stealing her own car. No report, no complaint, until now. And she wasn't the only one. Pine Brook had never been known for protests. But something had broken open, and no one seemed in a rush to close it back up. Still, everyone had one question on their lips. When is the mayor going to speak? 3 days after the incident, the silence finally broke. It wasn't a flashy press conference. There were no dramatic lights, no crowd of politicians behind him, and no speeches written by a team of advisors. It was just Anthony Delmar, standing alone on the steps of City Hall, wearing the same blazer he had worn the night of the stop. His face still showed faint traces of the bruise, like a watermark from a moment no one could forget. He stepped up to the microphone. The crowd held its breath. "I've stayed quiet these past few days," he began. "Not because I was scared, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I needed to be sure I wasn't speaking from anger." The square was still. The only sound was the soft clicks of camera shutters. "I'm not here to speak as a victim," he continued. "I'm here as your mayor, your neighbor, and your equal." Some people clapped. Others stood motionless, waiting. "What happened to me," he said, voice steady, "was not new, not to many in this town. But this time it was visible, and that makes all the difference." He looked across the crowd. His eyes landed on the line of officers standing at the edge, Chief Knox among them. "I've reviewed every piece of footage," he said. "I've read every complaint, past and present. I've spoken to residents who've stayed silent for years. And I want to be clear. This is not about one officer. This is about a culture." The crowd began to stir. Clapping grew louder. Some people cheered. But Delmar didn't let the energy distract him. "This is not an anti-police speech," he said. "This is a pro-accountability moment." He paused again. The weight of his words hung in the air. We cannot build trust on silence. We cannot fix what we refuse to face. A voice from the back called out, "Tell it, Mayor." Delmar nodded slightly, then added, "Craig Lunsford didn't ask me who I was, because he thought he already knew." He looked at me and made a decision. One that could have ended differently if I hadn't been the mayor. He let the words settle. "That's not just a mistake. That's a danger." Reporters scribbled in notebooks. Phones streamed every word live. Across Pine Brook, people listened from classrooms, diners, living rooms. Effective immediately, he said. I'm requesting an independent review of our police department. Every complaint from the last 10 years will be re-examined. Every officer will be retrained on bias, on de-escalation. And I will personally attend the first round of that training. Gasps, applause, cheers. I'm not seeking revenge, Delmar said. I'm demanding reform. He closed his eyes for just a moment. My father used to tell me, power doesn't reveal character. It reveals focus. And I want to focus on truth, not just mine, but yours. He stepped away from the mic, nodded once, and walked back inside. No questions, no fanfare. Just a mayor. Bruised, but unshaken. Across town, reactions came fast. At Baxter's Diner, people who had defended Craig Lunsford just days earlier sat in silence, watching the speech replay on their phones. He handled it better than I would have, someone whispered. Man didn't raise his voice once, another said. That's strength. At Ridgeway Library, the high school students who had organized the march burst into cheers. He's the real deal, one girl said. That's why we voted for him. Inside the police department, Chief Knox returned to her office and locked the door. She watched the entire speech again, this time alone. She didn't cry, but something in her shifted. And at home, Craig Lunsford sat in the dark, watching the mayor speak on a tiny screen. He turned it off halfway through, not because he didn't believe what Delmar was saying, but because he knew every single word of it was true. 2 weeks later, the results of the independent review were in. A special oversight team from Stockton had worked around the clock. They combed through complaint files, body cam footage, and internal reports, dating back an entire decade. What they found wasn't a surprise to some, but it was damning. 19 complaints had been filed against Officer Craig Lunsford. Only one ever went beyond his supervisor. No formal hearings, no psychological evaluations, no lasting consequences, just warnings, dismissals, ignored patterns, and on a rainy Thursday morning, inside a packed City Hall room, the mayor returned to the microphone. He wasn't alone this time. Councilwoman Ruth Barlow stood to his right. Chief Knox stood to his left, her face unreadable. Reporters waited. Cameras rolled. The town was watching. Mayor Delmar took a breath. Effective immediately, he announced. Officer Craig Lunsford has been terminated from his position with the Pine Brook Police Department. He will not be reinstated. He will not be rehired. And he will not serve under any city contract. A wave of reaction swept the room. Some gasped, some applauded. Others looked stunned. A reporter raised his voice. Is this about punishment? The mayor raised his hand gently. This isn't about punishment for its own sake. It's about responsibility. And every town, he said, eyes scanning the room, must decide what kind of leadership it wants behind a badge. Then Chief Knox stepped forward. She didn't hesitate. We failed, she said. I failed. Not just the mayor, but the people. We let warnings collect dust. We let shortcuts become habits. And for that, I will fully support whatever changes this community needs. There was no shouting, no finger-pointing, just accountability. And it rippled across Pine Brook. Some residents felt relief. Others still carried anger. A few said Lunsford was just a scapegoat. But most understood that something bigger had shifted. At Ridgeway Market, a man named Reggie Porter handed out printed copies of the mayor's reform plan. He didn't say much, just nodded as he passed them to strangers. I've been waiting for this kind of leadership since I was a teenager, he told one passerby. Elsewhere, Tyler Anderson, the woman Lunsford accused of stealing her own car, received a formal letter of apology from the department. It didn't erase what happened, but it was something. As for Lunsford, he vanished from public view. No interviews, no statements, just a single letter to the city council. I accept the decision. I have nothing more to add. But the story didn't end there. Mayor Delmar kept pushing forward. He established a civilian review board, created an anonymous hotline for reporting officer misconduct, launched monthly community meetings led by both residents and officers. At first, people were skeptical. Some were angry. Some didn't trust it. But they showed up. They listened. They spoke. And slowly, they began to feel like maybe, just maybe, this town could be different. And Delmar? He stayed the same, walking neighborhoods, shaking hands, listening more than he spoke. At one meeting, a young girl raised her hand. "What if something like this happens again?" she asked. Delmar looked her in the eye. "Then we deal with it," he said, "together. Loud, clear, and honest. That's the only way to keep things from going quiet again." The room was still for a second. Then someone clapped, then another, and slowly it spread. Weeks turned into months. And though the tension never fully left, something real began to grow in its place. At his father's house, quiet and calm, Anthony sat out back one evening. His dad looked over and said softly, "You took the hit and stood taller. That's what real change looks like." Anthony didn't smile. He just nodded once. Not because he felt proud, but because he knew the work wasn't over. It had only just begun.